The night air carries secrets in small Virginia towns. On October 15, 2010, those secrets would claim a life and shatter a community forever. Emily Hayes adjusts her jacket against the cool autumn breeze. The 22-year-old graphic designer steps out of her downtown apartment, keys jingling softly in her hand. Streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement as she walks toward Miller's Corner store, the same route she's taken dozens of times before. Her sneakers make soft padding sounds on the sidewalk. The night feels different somehow, quieter, more still. At exactly 9:47 p.m., a security camera captures Emily walking past Thompson's gas station. Her silhouette moves confidently through the frame, disappearing into the darkness beyond. It's the last time anyone will see Emily Hayes alive. Back at her apartment, the lights remain on. Her silver Toyota Corolla sits untouched in the driveway. Her phone lies charging on the kitchen counter, its screen dark and silent. Hours tick by. The apartment grows cold. Something has gone terribly wrong. By midnight, Diane Hayes knows her daughter isn't coming home. The mother's intuition that had kept Emily safe through childhood now screams warnings into the empty night. Emily always calls. Emily always comes home. The silence stretches like a wound across the small Virginia community. And in that silence, a mystery begins that will haunt them all for nearly a decade. Before we dive deeper into this chilling case, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Your support helps us bring these important stories to light and keeps families' voices heard. The girl who lit up every room, Emily Marie Hayes, possessed the kind of spirit that made ordinary moments feel special. At 22, she had already carved out a life filled with creativity and purpose. Her camera captured the world through eyes that saw beauty in abandoned buildings and magic in morning light. Friends described her laugh as infectious, the kind that made strangers turn around and smile. Emily could walk into a room and just change it. Her best friend Lindsay would later recall, tears streaming down her face. She made everyone feel like they mattered. Raised by her single mother Diane in their modest two-bedroom home on Maple Street, Emily had learned early the value of independence and determination. Her younger brother Jason, just 19, looked up to his sister like she hung the stars. Sunday dinners at their kitchen table were sacred, filled with Emily's animated stories about her latest photography projects and her dreams of opening her own design studio. The small apartment Emily had moved into 6 months earlier represented everything she'd worked toward. Located above Martinez Bakery on Main Street, it smelled perpetually of fresh bread and carried the sounds of a community going about its daily life. Emily loved the energy. She'd often sit by her window, sketching the people walking below, turning ordinary moments into art. Her routine was predictable in the way that brought comfort to those who loved her. Morning coffee at 7 a.m. sharp, work at Fletcher Design Studio until 5. Evening walks to clear her head, phone calls to her mother every night at 8:30. Emily understood that consistency meant safety in a world that often felt chaotic. That Tuesday in October started like any other. Emily spent the afternoon perfecting a logo design for Patterson's Hardware, a local business that had been part of the community for 3 generations. She texted Lindsay around 4 p.m. "Can't wait to show you the final version tonight." The message carried her typical enthusiasm, complete with 3 exclamation points and a smiley face emoji. At 6:15 p.m., she called her mother. "Just wrapping up at the office, Mom. I'll probably grab some milk on the way home and then come by for dinner tomorrow." Diane could hear the smile in her daughter's voice. Everything was normal. Everything was safe. But as Emily locked up the design studio that evening, walking toward her apartment as the sun dipped below the horizon, she had no way of knowing that someone was watching. Someone who had been watching for weeks. When normal becomes nightmare. The call comes in at 12:17 a.m. Diane Hayes' voice trembles through the phone line as she speaks to dispatcher Maria Santos. "My daughter Emily is missing. She never came home. She always calls. Always." The apartment tells a story of interrupted life. Emily's work portfolio lies open on the kitchen table, pages scattered as if she'd been reviewing them before leaving. A half-eaten sandwich sits on a plate beside her laptop. Her purse hangs on its usual hook by the door, wallet and ID still inside. Only her keys are missing. "This isn't like Emily," Diane keeps repeating as more officers arrive. "She would never just disappear. Never." Detective Sarah Chen takes charge of the scene. A 15-year veteran of the force, she's seen her share of missing persons cases, but something about Emily's apartment raises red flags. Everything appears normal, too normal. No signs of struggle. No evidence of hasty departure. It's as if Emily simply stepped out and vanished into thin air. The search begins immediately. Officer Morrison coordinates with local volunteers, while Detective Chen starts canvassing the neighborhood. Miller's Corner store sits just 3 blocks away, an easy walk Emily had made countless times. Store owner Pete Miller remembers seeing Emily around 9:30. Security footage from Thompson's gas station provides the last confirmed sighting. The timestamp reads 9:47 p.m. Emily walks confidently past the cameras, her jacket zipped against the cool night air. She appears relaxed, unaware of any danger. The footage shows her continuing down Elm Street toward her apartment. She never makes it home. By dawn, search teams spread across the town like ripples in a pond. Volunteers emerge from every corner of the community. Emily's former teachers, classmates from high school, regular customers from the design studio. They search wooded areas behind the shopping center. They check abandoned buildings. They knock on every door within a 5-mile radius. "The whole town came together," recalls volunteer coordinator Margaret Wells. "I've never seen anything like it. Emily touched so many lives." But as the sun sets on October 16th, the searchers return empty-handed. No trace of Emily Hayes exists, beyond that final security camera image. The mystery deepens with each passing hour, and the community begins to realize that their safe, small town has become the setting for something unthinkable. The long, cold years. Time moves differently when someone you love disappears. Days crawl by with agonizing slowness, while somehow entire months slip past unnoticed. For Diane Hayes, each sunrise brings renewed hope and each sunset carries crushing disappointment. The initial wave of media attention crests and breaks within weeks. Emily's face, once prominently featured on local news broadcasts, gradually fades from television screens. The daily search parties dwindle to weekend volunteers, then to just family and close friends. By Christmas 2010, the missing person flyers begin peeling from telephone poles and store windows. But in the Hayes household, time stops completely on October 5th. Emily's bedroom remains exactly as she left it. Her camera sits on the dresser, memory card still containing the last photos she ever took. Artistic shots of autumn leaves, and her neighbor's cat sleeping in a sunny window. Her clothes hang in the closet, still carrying the faint scent of her vanilla perfume. Diane changes the sheets every month, just in case. "People kept telling me I needed to move on," Diane remembers, her voice carrying 8 years of accumulated pain. How do you move on when half of your heart is missing? Detective Chen keeps the case file on her desk, refusing to let it disappear into the cold case archives. Every few months, she reviews the evidence again. She re-interviews witnesses. She follows up on tips that lead nowhere. The investigation officially goes cold in 2012, but Chen never gives up. "I promised Diane I wouldn't stop looking," Chen explains, pulling out a thick folder marked Hayes Emily M. "Some cases get under your skin. This was one of them." The annual vigils become sacred rituals. Every October 15th, the community gathers at Miller's Corner store to light candles and share memories. Emily's brother Jason, now a college graduate working as a teacher, speaks each year about keeping hope alive. His voice grows stronger with each passing anniversary, but his eyes carry the same haunted look as his mother's. Local rumors swirl and fade like autumn leaves. Some whisper about a drifter who passed through town that week. Others speculate about a secret boyfriend or hidden troubles in Emily's life. Detective Chen investigates every theory, no matter how far-fetched, but the truth remains elusive. In 2015, advances in DNA technology offer new hope. Evidence from Emily's apartment is retested using more sophisticated methods. Partial genetic profiles emerge from items that had previously yielded nothing. But without a suspect to compare them against, the DNA evidence sits in storage, waiting for a match that may never come. The town adapts around the absence. the way communities do when tragedy becomes part of their history. New residents learn Emily's story from neighbors. Children grow up knowing her name. Local businesses display her photo year-round, maintaining the vigil even when hope seems futile. But for Diane Hayes, the waiting continues. She checks her phone obsessively, hoping for a call from Detective Chen, with news, any news. She drives the same streets Emily walked that final night, searching for clues the police might have missed. She celebrates Emily's birthday each year with a cake her daughter will never taste. The calendar pages turn. 2013 becomes 2014 becomes 2015. The world moves forward while the Hayes family remains frozen in time, suspended between hope and despair, between life and death, between questions and answers that seem destined never to come. The DNA that changed everything. March 12, 2018. Detective Chen's phone rings at 7:43 a.m. as she's pouring her second cup of coffee. The voice on the other end belongs to Dr. Rebecca Martinez from the State Crime Lab, and her tone carries an electricity that makes Chen sit up straight. "Sarah, you need to get down here. We got a hit on the Hayes case." The drive to Richmond takes forever, and no time at all. Chen's mind races through possibilities as highway miles blur past her windshield. 8 years, 8 long years of dead ends and broken leads. But DNA doesn't lie. In the sterile laboratory, Dr. Martinez spreads the evidence across a metal table like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. The genetic profile extracted from Emily's sweater, a piece of evidence that had yielded nothing in 2010, now tells a story, thanks to advances in forensic genealogy. The sample was degraded, but we managed to build a partial profile, Martinez explains, pointing to columns of genetic markers on her computer screen. We ran it through the genealogy databases and found a familial match. Third cousins on the paternal side. The family tree that emerges paints a picture spanning 4 generations. Names and dates cascade down the computer screen like digital rainfall. Chen follows the branches with her finger, tracing bloodlines through decades of Virginia history. And there, highlighted in red, sits a name that makes her blood run cold.
Thomas Miller.
Age 34, lives on Elm Street, the same street Emily walked that final night, works at Patterson's Hardware, the same business whose logo Emily had been designing, has been part of the community for years, invisible in his ordinariness. "Jesus," Chen breathes, staring at Miller's driver's license photo, a nondescript man with thinning brown hair and unremarkable features, the kind of face that disappears in a crowd. He's been right here all along. The background check reveals disturbing details. Miller has a criminal record dating back to his early 20s. Assault charges, domestic violence, breaking and entering. Nothing that would automatically link him to Emily's disappearance, but a pattern of escalating behavior that sends chills down Chen's spine. "We need to move carefully," District Attorney Michael Hawkins warns during an emergency meeting. "We have DNA, but we need more. This case has been cold for 8 years. We get one shot at this." The surveillance begins immediately. Detective Chen and her team document Miller's daily routine with painstaking precision. He leaves his modest ranch house at 7:15 every morning, stops at Thompson's gas station for coffee, arrives at work by 7:45, lunch at Murphy's Diner, home by 6. Predictable, methodical, the behavior of someone who has spent years perfecting a facade of normalcy. But it's what they find in the old case files that seals Miller's fate. Chen discovers that he had been questioned briefly in 2010, a routine canvass of neighborhood residents. His alibi was weak but not suspicious enough to warrant follow-up. He claimed to have been home alone, watching television. No one thought to dig deeper. He was hiding in plain sight, Chen realizes, studying Miller's original interview notes. "We talked to him 3 days after Emily disappeared, and he looked us right in the eye and lied." The investigation reveals more damning evidence. Miller's work schedule at Patterson's Hardware shows he had been making frequent deliveries to Fletcher Design Studio in the weeks before Emily's disappearance. He would have seen her regularly, observed her routines, learned her pattern, the predator studying his prey. Security footage from various locations around town, archived but never thoroughly analyzed, tells the story of Miller's movements that October night. Frame by frame, the investigators pieced together his path. At 9:52 p.m., 5 minutes after Emily's last confirmed sighting, a figure matching Miller's height and build walks quickly down Elm Street in the opposite direction. The net tightens around Thomas Miller with methodical precision. Phone records, credit card transactions, work schedules, every piece of his life gets scrutinized and cataloged. The picture that emerges is of a man who had been fantasizing about Emily Hayes for months before finally acting on his darkest impulses. On April 3, 2018, Detective Chen calls Diane Hayes with news the mother has been waiting 8 years to hear. "We found him, Diane. We found the man who took Emily." The arrest that shook a community. The morning of April 15, 2018, dawns crisp and clear, the kind of spring day that makes promises about new beginnings. Thomas Miller follows his usual routine, unaware that a team of detectives watches his every movement from unmarked vehicles positioned around his neighborhood. At 7:43 a.m., as Miller locks his front door and walks toward his pickup truck, Detective Chen gives the signal. Police cars converge from 3 directions, their flashing lights painting the quiet residential street in reds and blues. Neighbors emerge from their houses, coffee mugs in hand, watching in stunned silence as officers surround the man who has lived among them for years. "Thomas Miller, you're under arrest for the murder of Emily Hayes," Chen announces, her voice carrying across the morning air, like a verdict that has been 8 years in the making. Miller's reaction surprises everyone. No panic, no protests of innocence. He simply stares at Chen with hollow eyes and extends his hands for the handcuffs. The calm acceptance of a man who has been expecting this moment for nearly a decade. "I wondered when you'd figure it out," he says quietly as the cuffs click into place. The arrest sends shockwaves through the community faster than any social media post or news bulletin ever could. Within hours, clusters of residents gather on street corners, their conversations punctuated by disbelief and horror. The man who had fixed their appliances, who had helped load lumber into their cars, who had smiled and made small talk for years, he was the monster who had stolen Emily Hayes. At Patterson's Hardware, owner Bill Patterson stares at Miller's empty workbench with trembling hands. "He seemed so normal," Patterson keeps repeating to anyone who will listen. "Quiet, reliable, never caused any trouble. How could we not know?" The interrogation room at the county police station becomes the setting for Detective Chen's most important interview. She sits across from Miller studying the man who has haunted her thoughts for 8 years. He appears smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of his secrets finally being exposed. "Tell me about Emily," Chen begins, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Miller remains silent for nearly an hour, staring at his hands folded on the metal table. Then, as if a dam finally bursts, the words begin flowing. The confession pours out in a monotone voice, devoid of emotion, a clinical recounting of events that destroyed a family and shattered a community. He had been watching Emily for months, following her routines, learning her schedule. The design project for Patterson's Hardware had given him legitimate reasons to visit Fletcher Design Studio, opportunities to observe her interactions with coworkers, to study her habits and preferences. "She was so beautiful," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, "so full of life. I just wanted to talk to her, to make her understand how I felt." The night of October 15th, Miller had waited in the shadows near Miller's corner store, knowing Emily would walk that route. When she emerged from the store, he approached her. What started as an attempt at conversation quickly escalated when Emily became frightened and tried to run. "I never meant for it to happen," Miller claims, though his words lack conviction. "She was scared, trying to get away. I couldn't let her go." The details that follow paint a picture of calculated violence, disguised as impulsive crime. Miller reveals the location where he disposed of Emily's body, a remote section of Shenandoah National Forest, 60 miles from town. He had driven there many times over the years, returning to the site like a pilgrim visiting a shrine. Detective Chen listens to every word with professional composure, but inside, her heart breaks for Emily's family. After 8 years of questions, they finally have answers. After 8 years of hoping Emily might somehow still be alive, they must confront the reality of her death. The confession continues for 3 hours, recorded for posterity and legal proceedings. Miller describes how he had lived with the secret, how he had watched the search parties from his window, how he had even joined the community vigils to avoid suspicion. The audacity of his deception stuns everyone involved in the investigation. As news of the arrest spreads, Diane Hayes receives a phone call that forever changes her relationship with grief. Detective Chen's voice carries both triumph and sorrow. As she delivers the news, families of missing persons dream of and dread in equal measure. "We found her, Diane. We found Emily. And we found the man who took her from us." Justice 8 years in the making. The courtroom overflows with faces that tell the story of a community forever changed. October 8, 2019, nearly 9 years after Emily Hayes disappeared into a Virginia night, her family finally faces the man who stole her life. Thomas Miller sits at the defendant's table, his appearance transformed by months of incarceration. The confident handyman who had moved through their community undetected now appears shrunken and pale. His defense attorney, court-appointed and clearly overwhelmed by the evidence, shuffles through papers with the demeanor of someone fighting an unwinnable battle. District Attorney Michael Hawkins approaches the jury with the weight of 8 years' worth of investigation behind him. The prosecution's case unfolds like a master class in forensic science and detective work. DNA evidence, security footage analysis, cell phone tower data. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Hawkins begins, his voice filling the packed courtroom, Emily Hayes was a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She was an artist, a daughter, a friend who lit up every room she entered. On October 15, 2010, the defendant made a choice that ended not just Emily's life, but changed our entire community forever. But it's the victim impact statements that bring the courtroom to tears. Diane Hayes approaches the witness stand with measured steps, her back straight despite the burden she has carried for nearly a decade. She looks directly at Miller as she speaks, her voice unwavering. "You didn't just kill my daughter," she says, her words cutting through the courtroom silence like a blade. "You killed the woman she would have become, the art she would have created, the children she might have had, the joy she would have brought to this world for decades to come." Emily's brother Jason, now 28 and a high school teacher, speaks about growing up in the shadow of his sister's disappearance. Every birthday, every Christmas, every family gathering, there was always an empty chair. "You took our sister, but you also took our ability to heal, to move forward, to find peace." The defense attempts to paint Miller as a man overcome by mental illness, someone who deserves treatment rather than punishment. Character witnesses describe his troubled childhood, his struggles with depression and social isolation. But their words fall flat against the mountain of evidence and the years of calculated deception. Miller himself finally speaks on the last day of testimony. His voice cracks as he addresses Emily's family directly. The apology rings hollow in the courtroom. Too little, too late. After years of watching the Hayes family suffer while he lived freely among them. Jury deliberation lasts just 4 hours. When they return to the courtroom, their faces tell the story before the verdict is even read. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, abduction, and concealment of a body. The sentencing hearing occurs 2 weeks later. Judge Patricia Morgan, a 30-year veteran of the bench, addresses Miller directly as she pronounces his fate. "Mr. Miller, you have been found guilty of the most heinous crime imaginable, the calculated murder of an innocent young woman whose only fault was crossing your path. You lived among this community for years, watching their pain, participating in their mourning, all while knowing you were responsible for their suffering. You will spend the rest of your natural life in prison, and may God have mercy on your soul. Life without the possibility of parole." The gavel falls with finality that echoes through the courtroom and across 8 years of questions finally answered. The recovery and a community's healing. 2 months after Miller's sentencing, a team of forensic specialists follows his directions to a remote section of Shenandoah National Forest. The location, buried beneath nearly a decade of fallen leaves and forest growth, yields Emily's remains at last. The recovery operation takes 3 days. Investigators work with painstaking care, treating Emily's final resting place with the reverence of archaeologists, uncovering precious artifacts. Her camera, the one she had carried that final night, is found nearby, its memory card miraculously intact, despite years of exposure to the elements. The final photographs Emily took tell the story of her last day. Images of autumn leaves catching afternoon sunlight, a stray cat sleeping peacefully in a shop window, her own reflection in the mirror of Fletcher Design Studio, smiling as she held up the completed Patterson's Hardware logo. The joy in her eyes serves as a heartbreaking reminder of the life that was stolen. On a cold December morning, Emily Hayes finally comes home. The funeral service fills St. Matthew's Episcopal Church beyond capacity. Representatives from dozens of law enforcement agencies attend, paying respects to both Emily and Detective Chen's unwavering dedication to finding the truth. The community that had searched for Emily in 2010 gathers again to say goodbye properly, with the closure they had been denied for so long. Diane Hayes speaks at the service with a strength that amazes everyone present. Emily is finally at peace, she says, her voice carrying across the packed church, and while our hearts will always carry the scar of losing her, we can find comfort in knowing that justice has been served and that Emily's spirit continues to inspire everyone who knew her. The recovery of Emily's remains brings unexpected healing to the community. The questions that had haunted residents for years finally have answers. The fear that had lingered in the shadows of their daily lives can finally be put to rest. Children can walk to corner stores again without their parents' hearts racing with panic. Detective Chen retires 6 months after the case closes, her promise to Diane Hayes fulfilled at last. She establishes a foundation in Emily's name to fund advanced forensic training for small-town police departments, ensuring that other families won't have to wait 8 years for answers. Emily's case taught us that persistence matters, Chen explains at the Foundation's first fundraising dinner. That advances in science can breathe new life into cold cases, that communities united in purpose can overcome any obstacle. Emily's legacy isn't just about the case we solved, it's about the hope we can offer to other families still searching for truth. The Patterson's Hardware logo, Emily designed in her final hours, becomes a permanent fixture in the store's window, accompanied by a small plaque, remembering her life and celebrating her art. Her photographs, recovered from various locations around town, are displayed in a permanent exhibition at the local library. But perhaps the most fitting memorial stands at Miller's Corner store, where Emily made her final purchase. A small garden now blooms beside the entrance, tended by community volunteers who ensure flowers bloom there year-round. The inscription on a simple stone marker reads, "Emily Hayes, artist, daughter, friend." Her light continues to shine. The lasting impact. The Emily Hayes case stands as more than just another solved mystery. It represents a fundamental shift in how small communities approach missing persons investigations, and a testament to the power of never giving up hope. In the years following Miller's conviction, Virginia implements new protocols for missing persons cases, inspired directly by lessons learned from Emily's disappearance. Police departments receive training in advanced forensic techniques and genealogical investigation methods. The Emily Hayes Protocol is immediate preservation of evidence using the most current scientific methods available, ensuring future advances in technology can be applied to cold cases. For Diane Hayes, life after justice brings its own complex emotions. The closure she had yearned for comes with the finality of knowing her daughter is truly gone. Yet it also brings peace, the ability to mourn properly, to celebrate Emily's life without the shadow of unanswered questions, to find purpose in helping other families facing similar tragedies. I spent 8 years in limbo, Diane reflects on the 5th anniversary of Miller's conviction, not knowing if Emily was alive somewhere, suffering, needing rescue. Now I know she's at peace. Now I can be at peace too. The case also highlights the crucial role of advancing technology in solving cold cases. DNA phenotyping, genetic genealogy, and improved forensic techniques continue to breathe new life into investigations that once seemed hopeless. Emily's case serves as inspiration for families across the country who refuse to give up on missing loved ones. Thomas Miller remains in prison, his appeals exhausted, and his name forever linked to one of Virginia's most notorious crimes. In rare interviews, he expresses remorse for his actions, though whether his contrition is genuine or calculated continues to be debated. What remains undisputed is the devastating impact of his choices on a family, a community, and countless others who followed Emily's story. The broader message of Emily Hayes' case resonates far beyond the borders of small-town Virginia. It speaks to the importance of community solidarity in times of crisis. It demonstrates that justice, while sometimes delayed, can ultimately prevail. Most importantly, it reminds us that every missing person represents not just a case file or a statistic, but a life filled with dreams, relationships, and potential that deserve to be remembered and honored. Emily wanted to make the world more beautiful through her art, her brother Jason notes during a recent interview. In a way, she succeeded. The community that came together to find her, the advances in forensic science her case inspired, the families who found hope in our story, Emily made all of that possible. Her light really does continue to shine. The Emily Hayes Foundation has helped solve 12 cold cases in the past 3 years, providing funding for advanced DNA testing and forensic genealogy research. Each success represents another family finding answers, another community finding closure, another validation of the principle that no missing person should ever be forgotten. As we remember Emily Hayes today, her infectious laugh, her artistic vision, her dreams cut tragically short, we also celebrate the persistence of those who refused to let her story end with her disappearance. Her case proves that some mysteries, no matter how cold they become, can still yield their secrets to those determined enough to keep searching for truth. In a world where headlines fade and attention spans shrink, Emily's story stands as a powerful reminder that behind every unsolved case is a family still hoping, a community still caring, and investigators still working. Emily Hayes was 22 years old when her life was stolen on that October night but her impact on the world has grown with each passing year, touching lives across the country and inspiring changes that will help countless families find the justice they deserve. In that way, Emily's story isn't really about death at all. It's about the enduring power of love, community, and the unwavering human quest for truth. Her light continues to shine, and it always will.